per of everything that you expect to be and or insist upon being the absolute result of the sexual intercourse and or sexual play. Inform your chosen mate which of the following statements will apply and ask for an agreement. Okay, now there are 15 or 18 on this page in this particular section. So, Mr. Fuller, what I'm going to do is just in no particular order ask you to select a few that at least three that you feel are pertinent to the point. All of them are pertinent, but just three, starting on page 295.
Oh, well, I can just start with number one.
Okay.
Hey, I expect to receive money from you when I ask you for it. Okay?
Ooh.
Yeah. And then that you can discuss that right out of the gate. I mean, you're starting to talk to a person and all like that. Everything is about what is this so-called relationship and our arrangement under the system of white supremacy going to be? Where is it all going to lead? What is it going to look like, days down the road, weeks down the road, months, years, decades, if anything? But you want to get everything straight right from the first conversation. So there will be what? No what? Confusion. It's confusion that causes problems. When all questions are answered right up front in any situation, not some questions, all questions, and that's in any transaction, any interaction between people, anywhere on the planet, any time of day. If you can get all of the questions you're ever going to ask, answered right from the beginning of any interaction with any person, you got all your answers up front. You won't be asking questions 10 years from now that you didn't ask up front, and now but so many things have happened. People have gotten involved in different ways and all like that, whether it's a business transaction, and all transactions are business, whatever the word business means, okay? You're interacting with a person, that's some type of business. Even if you say, well, it is personal, well, it's personal business, business personal. Or where's the dividing line? But you are interacting with people. So you just want to know everything, not some things. You want to know everything. That is what has been causing problems all the time. You don't know everything. You should know everything that can possibly be known. All right? Now, some things can't be known because the person that you're asking the question of, you'll say, well, can you answer this question? And when you ask a question, the person might say, well, I don't have the answer to that question. Well, that's the answer. That is an answer. Saying that you don't have an answer when you don't have an answer and it's true, means just that. So then the person has to say, well, if you can't answer that question, now you have to figure out whether or not an answer to that question is so important to the person who is asking the question for them to go forward.
Okay.
It might not be a question that's all that important. Say, well, I didn't really need to know that anyway, but I just asked, because it happened to occur to me.
Okay.
But it really doesn't matter. So we'll go on to question number 580, all right? Because before you have sexual intercourse with someone, we're talking about hundreds of questions.
Yes, sir.
That should happen. Should be a part of the, black people's code. See, no blindsiding, nothing hidden before. And now, if you don't feel comfortable enough to answer all of these questions, both parties ask and answer all questions, then you're not comfortable enough to head to the bedroom. That's all that means. It's only when you're comfortable with that person enough to say, hey, I know enough about you and you know enough about me we're good to go.
Okay.
But if that bell doesn't ring for both of you, you're not ready.
Okay.
And that way you do what? Minimize all conflicts before they ever get started.
Okay. Two more, please.
All right. I'll just go to number 2.
Okay.
I expect you to help provide me with food, clothing, shelter, and or transportation when I ask you to do so. Now, these are statements that you're making.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so the person says, well, I'm not going to do all that. I can't promise you that. Well, the person is letting you know that's what that person expects. See, so you don't get blindsided. All right.
Okay.
Like you see these TV programs sometimes where people go on and say, what type of person are you? What type, they just ask surface questions and whatnot because they're talking about just going on a so-called date. All right. Whatever a date means. But I'm talking about the bedroom because that's when things really get serious. They don't really get serious until you get to the bedroom, until you get to what we call sexual intercourse and our serious sexual play. It's not really serious until it gets that far.
Okay.
So you want all questions and all answers. No, nothing. These 3 words should never come up in a so-called relationship. I didn't know. That should never be said, ever, because that's where the problem has been all the time. If you stop and think about it, all so-called relationships, you will hear that sometime or another when things have really gone, what we call gone bad. Things are really a big mess. You will hear somebody say, not necessarily in those 3 words, but it boils down to those 3 words. I didn't know. Or if I had known. Or if I had known that. If I had known you were on parole, I never would have got involved with you.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't tell me you were on parole. Well, that wasn't discussed, If I had known you had 3 wives and you never divorced none of them.
Mm.
If I had known, I didn't know,
Okay.
I didn't know that you had 1 wife, this is a mess.
All right.
And now you married me. If I had known this, I never would have talked to you.
Yes, sir.
See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
On and on and on.
What are the other?
I didn't know.
What are the other 2?
The other 2, like what?
Well, you said there were 3 things that should never come up.
It's just that.
Okay.
It's just that one thing.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, then let's go to one more. One more before we take a call here. One more question here.
Okay.
Oh, the statements that you've made.
Statement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I expect you to tell me truthfully the reasons that you intend to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with me.
Okay.
Now, that should be pretty straightforward.
Yes, sir.
It shouldn't be difficult at all. The person says, well, because you look good to me, Well, anything else? Is anything about my personality and all like that? No, I ain't caring about your personality. I don't know anything about your personality.
Mm-hmm.
But, you just look good to me physically, and, hey, that's it.
Okay.
And after that, it depends on how you make me feel while we're doing it and all like that, and whether or not I want to come back. Now you can discuss that. Tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
See, everybody's supposed to be willing to tell each other the truth, because the first falsehood in this interchange, in this talking, the first falsehood that is transpired in what we call black people's code of relationships is a big bell going off. See, if you think that you got to say something that ain't true, then you're not ready anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You need to just keep talking.
Keep
and
talking.
Just say that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm tempted to tell you something that ain't true now. So we're going to have to just keep talking and talk about something else.
All
and
right.
Get back to that later.
Okay.
That's the way that conversation should go.
Okay.
So you're fixing to force me to lie now, and I ain't going to do that.
All righty.
You're free not to lie.
Okay. Now, these are examples that Mr. Fuller has written, starting on page 295. There are 18 of them. It extends over to 296. And for those of you in class can look at that and see if it's relevant to you and so forth. Okay, let's go here. We are not on Facebook.com/Talktainment right now. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this. Josiah Carter, Kim Joshua Jones in Dallas, and Larry in Dallas. We did get you before we went off, but listen to this. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7, no charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and of course, politics. And here are a couple that I'd like to share with you. How about three? New Money. Hey, you know, that's one of my favorites. The Voice of Deliverance. And of course, this one right here, The Kinsman. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, click on programs for the scheduled times, and then you can do whatever you need to do. That's from Talktainment Radio. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, and I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You can get in contact with the show by calling 1-877-932-9766 or Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, at gmail.com. Now, the Facebook.com /Talktainment. Oh, we are on Facebook. Okay, my screen is not up. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ed. Well, we are on Facebook, but I can't get to the names, but we're going to work on that. But let's go to the phone lines. And line number one. Okay, line number one. You are on. Go ahead, please.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. This is Brother Muko. I'm in Baltimore, where we hold the compensatory constructive action discussions on St. Louis Drive every Saturday, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., every Saturday, right under the dome across the street from Lake Clifton High School. And I kind of have a two-part question for Mr. Fuller today. The first part is, and I don't know if I've seen this in the Word Guide or not, in the handbook or not, but one of the questions that two people should ask before intercourse is whether they should be straight on what sex is. Is that agreed, Mr. Fuller?
Sure. In other words, there should be an understanding about everything, particularly if you're talking about sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse is sexual intercourse. Male with female, primarily. And, and what you're doing. You're going to bed and, phallus, vagina, that's it.
Right.
That's basic.
Right.
Universal, all over the world. The last time I heard. Okay.
Right.
So that's it. And sexual play is just, what they call fondling, kissing, anything that's short of sexual intercourse itself. That's under sexual play. That term is used throughout the textbook. Sexual intercourse, sexual play. Sexual play is in parentheses, in brackets, because it consists of anything that's short of sexual intercourse, you might say. Mm-hmm. You want to use the word short. All right.
Right. And in our discussions, I definitely love how I use your Word Guide as a guide, and I also we examine other words that are not in the Word Guide. But can you stress on the importance for my care unit in Baltimore, how important it is, and I know you do this every day, and I know you're pretty tired of repeating yourself, but how it is very important to pay attention to thoughts, speech, and actions, especially when you're using the words.
Okay. Why is what now?
The words that we use, how we need to really pay attention to the words that we use and ask questions, because the words are tools. But I was just saying, can you express for my care unit in Baltimore how we need to examine all of the words that we use in every area of people activity? Did I clear that up for you a little bit?
Yes. Every word means something. And what you want to do, what are words? They're nothing but tools of communication. You want to communicate with someone, not just throw words at people, and people have to walk away. See, you should never walk away from a conversation scratching your head. figuring out.
Right.
I wonder what that meant. A lot of that goes on in classrooms, in schools, where the teachers are going on nonstop, and the students are sitting there looking blank. Well, why are they sitting there looking blank? A teacher should always ask that. You all look like you don't understand what I'm saying. And almost every hand will go up. Now, the teacher's been talking for 15 minutes. And just about every hand. Now, teachers really need to watch that. Professors need to watch that. They know what they're going to say. They know what they're saying. But how much of it is being picked up? And this is very, 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 very super over-the-top important. That's lecturers, too. I mean, sometimes I look at television and I see people giving economic advice. And, man, they are just moving at like a bullet train. You know, and so at the end of the program, an hour-long program, I say, now, what did I actually learn that I can get up out of this chair and put to use right this minute? You know, and the money starts coming in. And usually I come up with zero. Why? Because the words that the person is using, fiscal this, and then, you know, fiduciary this, and on and on and on and on. They're not communicating. I want to hear it in plain, what you call third grade language, about every step that I can take, that by the end of that week, I got money in my pocket that I didn't have at the beginning of the week. Now, tell me how to do that. That's what I'm talking about. Don't stand up and tell me about how much you know because you've been to economic school.
Right.
I want you to be able to transfer what you know to me that will put money in my pocket by the end of the week or the end of the month or the end of the year, whatever time you say.
That's
Otherwise, stop giving economic advice.
Okay.
Exactly. And I got one last thing, Mr. Fuller. I follow you pretty good, and on Carl Nelson's show at the very, very end, you started to touch on celebration and how that's the sickest thing that any non-white person in the Northwest Hemisphere can do. Can you please elaborate on that? And I'll take that off there.
Don't celebrate anything. Educate. In other words, every situation for black people, based on logic now. Why am I saying that? This is logic. We're ridiculed because of what? Black people are usually associated with mass ignorance, mass stupidity. Oh, you don't want to deal with them people, you know. You don't want to even talk to them. I mean, you know, they're ignorant. They're stupid. You can't get nothing out of them that you can use that makes sense. Now, anything that doesn't make sense, they got plenty of that. When you're looking at talking to a black person, associating with a black person, you'll get a ton. You'll get truckloads of everything that makes no sense at all. But if you try to make any sense out of most of them, in most situations, you're just not going to get it because it ain't there. All right? Now, this is a reputation that we have all over the world, truth be told. And I'm saying that can be reversed in a couple of days just by black people themselves saying, you don't get nonsense out of me when you talk to me. I'm not going to sit and talk about nonsense with nobody ever, under any circumstance. Now, if you want to talk nonsense, talk to somebody else. If you just want to sit around and chit-chat about something that's at the kindergarten level, at playtime, not at study time, kindergarten at playtime, that's going nowhere, then talk to someone else. And I'm certainly not celebrating if you don't have anything to say to me that my celebration is education. Don't celebrate, educate. Every so-called celebration that black people have should be an educational tool.
Okay.
You should come away from that celebration having learned something that you can use of constructive value.
Okay.
Otherwise, no point in it.
No point in it. Let's celebrate this. When you call in and ask Mr. Fuller a question, please, 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 just ask him your question and limit it to one so that others may have an opportunity to get on. We all want to ask him that, but we don't have that much time. We have expanded to 2 hours, but let's be conscious of other people. Frankie, your question from the Gmail will be coming up next, but TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are all available. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. Again, Frankie from the Gmails, his question is coming up. And also, we're going to start on, continue on page 296. Yeah, in the middle of the page. All that and more coming up next on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
For the best home fragrance and beauty products, shop Ash Kickin online.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Made with 100% natural quality ingredients and handcrafted with your family in mind, Ash Kickin products are better than those other guys. Ash Kickin candles, incense, body butter, face moisturizer, and hair moisturizer are priced just right, and you can get yours at 10% off with coupon code TALK17. Support this 100% Black-owned business and get your home and body smelling and feeling all right.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Shop Ash Kickin online at www.ashkickin.com.
This is Al Edmondson, owner of a Cut Above the Rest barbershop. I'm calling on all barbers and beauticians. It's time for us to unite as one. We can serve our communities better together. Join the Ohio Black Barber Beauty Network. For more information, visit www.obbn.org or call 614-427-3226 to get more information. Be the change that you want to see in your community. Join our network.
If you or someone you know is abusing drugs and or alcohol and want to stop the abuse, contact APDS at 1409 East Livingston Avenue. Office hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday. APDS is certified by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and primarily funded through the Adam H. Board. Fees are based on your income and Medicaid is always accepted. For more information, call 614-253-4448.
Think fast. In less than 30 seconds, a small flame can become a big fire. Don't let your world go up in smoke. Have working smoke alarms and keep heaters 3 feet away from anything that can burn. Learn more at usfa.bema.gov because fire is everyone's fight.
Do you have problems controlling high blood pressure? Good news. You can enroll in Helping Hands Health and Wellness Center's health coaching program utilizing the innovative Twine Health platform. We will help you set your goals, keep in touch with you via your cell phone, and may provide you a free blood pressure cuff. Call us at 614-462-0114 or visit us on the web at www.helpinghandsfreeclinic.org to see if you qualify. This program is provided to you by a grant from the CVS Health Foundation.
See that cute little dog in the pet store? Chances are it came from a puppy mill. A breeding facility that forces caged, neglected, and often sick dogs to churn out puppies to be sold for profit. Meanwhile, millions of wonderful, healthy pets end up in animal shelters. But with one simple choice, you can help. Just by deciding to adopt instead of purchase your next pet. Not only are you saving a life, you're taking a stand against puppy mills. Visit bestfriends.org/puppy mills to learn more.
I've got the water, energy bars, and camera. I think we're set for the hike.
Almost. We need to protect our skin. Don't forget your wide-brimmed hat and sunscreen.
All right. I've got the hat. I've got SPF 30. Will that work?
Yeah, anything 15 or higher is good. Just make sure it says broad spectrum.
Great. Got it. I am not getting burned again. Let's go.
Learn more at cdc.gov/cancer. Families affected by disasters urgently need support. Help the American Red Cross provide meals and shelter to those affected by disasters, big and small. Donate to Red Cross Disaster Relief. Go to redcross.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
Okay, all right. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Hello, everybody. I am Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host of the Compensatory Concept here on Talktainment Radio with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And I understand that we are, well, I made a mistake. Yeah, I did. How about that? We are live on Facebook.com/Talktainment. I'm going to read some of your names so we can do our thing. Kim Joshua Jones, hello from Dallas. Book Dallas, hello from Larry in Dallas. Valencia Joseph, hey, morning all. Joliah Carter said, then why can't I still see and hear you? That's because I made a mistake, so you can see and hear me. Wisdom C, good morning from Ontario, Canada. Canada's in the house. They are listening. Let's see, Dwayne Anderson, good morning, Mr. Fuller. Thank you for being a true voice of reason. And hello to you, Mr. Bobby. Well, hello there, Dwayne. And also, Hanifa Tode, good morning. Thank you for all the posts. You know, we're working through this because all of this is new. But listen, you can also call at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Hey, this is live. I'm fumbling through whatever it is that I have to do to get your questions read and statements made. So bear with me and, you know, get on me if I mess up, and I'm going to mess up, so get on me. Okay, Mr. Fuller, we're going to go to page 295, and then I can get back to Frankie's question because I had to go off screen here. Mr. Fuller, let's see here. The question came, it's almost in the middle of the page. You said this or suggested this. Page 296 says, before having sexual intercourse for the first time with that person, be willing to ask yourself the following and request that person do the same. And then you wrote underneath an explanation. Could you continue the discussion right there?
Well, without naming the names of others, am I willing to tell this person all of the details of every act of sexual intercourse and are antisexual? Antisexual, according to the code, is what we call so-called homosexual intercourse.
Whoa.
All right. Without naming the names of others, are you willing to tell this person all of the details of every act of sexual intercourse and or homosexual intercourse that you've ever had? If the answer is no, do not have sexual intercourse with this person. In other words, right there, if you're going to have sexual intercourse with this person, if you're not willing to tell your whole sexual history, that's what we're talking here, then you are not comfortable enough. You should register yourself as being not comfortable enough to have sexual intercourse with that person that you want to have sexual intercourse with. Now, what is the purpose for all this? It's to slow everything down. Because we jump into so-called relationships, I mean, after we ask what? Maybe 3 or 4 questions. What's your sign? Do you have a job? Are you married? Do you have any children? If so, how many? And about time we get to about maybe 8 questions, that's it. We're good to go. Now, that's maybe be stretched out over a period of a week. You've known this person for a week or maybe a month. But when you add up the number of questions that you have actually asked and got answers to, they're usually very few if you stop and think about it. You met this person a month ago, and you are getting interested in each other, you might say, but you haven't had sexual intercourse, all right? But you have gone out and whatnot and seen movies and whatnot. You've talked on the phone a lot. You're texting back and forth and whatnot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those things. But when you actually add up the number of questions and answers that you have gotten, it comes to usually very few. It should be hundreds, actually. I would say at least 150, maybe, and up to 200. That should be about the minimum. About 150, somewhere between 150 to 200 questions, asked and answered. All kinds of questions and all kinds of answers. Now, if you choose not, you might even write, if you look at the textbook and use that as an example, which is what I recommend, and you say, oh, no, hey, this is absurd. I mean, we don't need to do that. We're grown folks. We are we're this, we're that. I mean, Neely Fuller's textbook, I mean, no, we don't have to do nothing rigid like that. We don't have to do nothing. No. We are civilized people. We can handle it. All right? So you can agree maybe to not ask or answer any questions, or maybe just the usual preliminaries.
Yeah.
Maybe just 10, 15 questions, and that's it. You're ready to go. But now, here's the code. That's why I say we need a code. If you fail to ask and answer, or if you choose to ask and answer, which you can do. See, nothing in the code is dictatorial. It's just a guideline.
Yes.
If you choose not to go by the code, and you choose to, you having sexual intercourse, I mean, over and over again and all like that, but you have only asked and answered maybe 12 questions in all the time in the 3 years you've been knowing each other. Now, new questions are beginning to come up that you haven't asked before, and it's starting what you call arguments, because most likely that's what's apt to happen when these new questions come up. Now you're getting into that, I didn't know that. Why didn't you tell me that? Well, these things were agreed on that you didn't discuss. So the code says any questions that you didn't ask and get answers to before you had that first act of sexual intercourse should not be asked and answered afterwards. Period. In other words, that's supposed to slow everything down. People always talking about they've been in this and that relationship. None of them worked out. Oh, woe is me, and all like that. That eliminates. Questions and answers will eliminate all of that. When they are mutual, voluntary, and you're comfortable enough to ask and answer them. Because if you're not comfortable enough to ask and answer all questions, then you shouldn't be comfortable enough to have sexual intercourse.
All righty.
That will straighten out a whole ocean of black people's problems and what we're always complaining about our relationships. I just can't find nobody that's right for me. You hear this from both male and female, sometimes screaming and yelling. These people are just not no good. These black women, they ain't no good, and blah, 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 blah. And the black females are saying the same thing about the black males. That will eliminate all that.
Yes,
Just
sir.
questions and answers. That's all you need.
Okay. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. And you can simply download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, and I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, who is live from Washington, D.C. You can see us on Facebook.com/Talktainment. And after I read Frank's East question, I should be able to call your names out and your little comments that you make. But also you can dial 1-877-932-9766. or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Okay, Mr. Fuller, at this time, the 45-minute mark, we designate a time for you to speak about your book, and then we'll ask Frank's question. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
The book is basically questions and answers, and also an overview of what we are all supposed to be about. When I say we, I mean everybody on the planet. And here in 2017, solving problems, those two words. Why? Because there's all kinds of confusion out here, and confusion makes for problems, and the people of this planet are not devoted to problem solving. And we're just randomly going around making problems and then whining about the problems that we make. Now, somebody made a big problem a long time ago called the system of white supremacy, and that's what the book is about. That's the number one problem on the planet, according to Neely Fuller's perspective, and I think that if you check at all the different problems throughout the world, that the so-called race problem is the biggest problem. That's the one that makes everybody panic. That's the one that makes people in meetings, when everybody's talking and holding up their hand and got something to say, you bring up the race issue, then the hands go down. People start looking for a way to find an exit. People want to run away from it. People don't want to deal with it. Why? Because it's the hardest problem. I think a man named Mr. Christopher, I can't remember his last name now. He's a professor, Mr. Christopher Edley. I always like to quote people correctly when I'm using their material. It was something that everybody should do, too, when you're using somebody else's material. Now, I think that if I recall correctly, and I'm paraphrasing maybe, but this came from a professor, Dr. Christopher Edley of some college on the East Coast, and he said, racism is not rocket science. It's harder than rocket science. In other words, hey, when you start talking about how to solve the race problem, you are talking about a real problem. That's why many people stumble and fumble. I don't care what kind of professors they are and whatnot when it comes to talk about solutions. Now, when we talk about the problem, we're real good at that. Everybody does that in every barbershop, you know. I mean, at every meeting, we've been doing that for centuries. You know, we got the problem down in detail. I mean, what is this problem, you know, and all the details of it, how it affects people. But this is what the books are about. Solutions, problem solving. How do you go about it? This morning we've been talking about the 8th area of activity, sex. How do you settle that? That's a problem. Sexual problems are huge all over this planet. So how do you solve these problems? Through all problem-solving mechanisms. What is that? Questions and answers. Because in science, in mathematics, in business, in anything, in relationships, all problems are solved through the process of what? Questions and answers. So the textbook for victims of racism is designed to tailor the thought, speech, and actions of each victim of racism in order to do what? Solve that victim's problems as an individual person. Now, here's the theory. You solve the problem of each individual person on the planet, and you'll solve the problem automatically, logically speaking, of every person on the planet. I mean, that seems like a simple no-brainer, and it is. If you solve each individual's problems, because each individual has a different type of problem or a similar problem to every other individual, but they are in a different environment. All people are different places, different times and whatnot. But if you come up with a code that will tell a person exactly what to do and say in every circumstance that will solve that person's problems, It can't get any better than that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's what every code book,
all right,
every textbook really should be trying to do.
All right. How can we get the book? Or where can we get the book?
You can go to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what you need to know will come up on the screen.
Okay.
For getting the basic textbook and the additional word guide.
All right. Now, we can, before I ask Frank's question, we can get the book in now the United Kingdom, or so-called United Kingdom, and also in Canada. Is that correct?
I've been told that you can get it in the United Kingdom, but now we start having some difficulty about Canada the last time I checked. That may have been taken care of.
Okay.
I haven't been given that information in confirmation yet.
Okay.
But it may be back on track.
Okay,
but
good.
Right now you can get it in England, at least.
Okay, good.
Right.
Okay.
Overseas.
All
you
right.
can get it anywhere else here, what we call the continental USA and Alaska and Hawaii.
All right, let's do this. Okay, Frankie wrote, he said, Mr. Fuller, a friend went to the Black National Whatever Museum today in D.C., and was not impressed with the exhibit for various reasons. Mr. Fuller, am I wrong for implying that it's embarrassing that the white supremacist philosophy is on display? In other words, come see the various artifacts which I used to enslave, degenerate, mutilate, and methodically destroy your great-grandparents. I've placed it all in one location to make it easier for you to see what we used to do to conquer and keep you in a condition of perpetual domination from generation to generation. No need to thank us. Consider it a small gesture on our part to say we're sorry, and this is the only reparation you will receive. Mr. Fuller?
Well, I haven't been. I'm right here in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not very far from the African American Museum.
Okay.
I've passed by it numerous times. Never been in there because, one thing, the crowds are too big and all, etc. I will eventually go there, I hope, sometime. Now, but having said that, it is my opinion that not only the African American Museum for history and culture, et cetera, but anything, any fraternity, and I was thinking about this yesterday, and I've been thinking about it for months. All the black fraternities, all the black sororities, all of the black social circles, anytime one black person contacts another, there should be 2 words in mind, worldwide. I don't care where you are, at any given time, in any institution, colleges, etc. 2 words. 2 words, just 2. Problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that entire museum, and they can do it no matter how they started out. Now, you know, there'll be people who will criticize the artifacts and all like that. Well, they got the artifacts there and all like that, et cetera, whatever they have in that museum. But the museum itself, the people who run the museum should, and this would be what I would say to anybody that I talk to associated with it, if I was talking to them right now, and I hope I am, they should think in terms of this massive building be about 2 words. Hey, we're going to solve every problem that everybody or anybody ever even thought about having. That's what we are going to concentrate on. Those 2 words. Those 2 words. Nothing outside of that. If it's not about problem solving, we are not interested. We have no interest at all. If you point to an artifact, if you point to the slave ships, if you point to a book that's in here, if you point to a statue that's in here, the question should be in your mind, What does this have to do with problem solving? Because of what? The world is full of problems right now. Young people and old people, elderly people, people in between and whatnot. Everywhere on the planet. People are dying, falling in the ocean, with their babies in their arms, trying to get from one place to another in order to do what? Solve their problems. So therefore, it's logical that everybody on this planet should wake up and go to bed at night with just those two words in mind, problem solving. And anytime somebody starts talking to you, at some point you should say, wait a minute, what does this have to do with problem solving? What does this have to do with solving some type of problem? Because we got tons of problems.
Yes, sir.
We are drowning in problems. And everybody's walking around talking about la-di-da and this and that and all like that. Is it connected with problem solving? Well, if you're black and you're on this planet, you shouldn't want to hear it if it's not connected with problem solving.
Okay.
That should just be, automatic. You're not even thinking about anything else. In any area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, you should stand up and say, wait a minute, hold everything, before we get too far down the road wasting time like we usually do. What does this have to do with solving what problem? Is there a connection? And show me the connection. Because if you can't show me the connection between this and solving a problem, I'm out of here. Period. I'm about problem solving.
Yes,
and
sir.
everybody that I contact should be about it too.
Okay.
And boy, if we just take that philosophy right this minute, just problem solving, just put that in your head and look around at everything going on around you. Look out the window, walk down the street and say, what problems does this solve? Look at what people are doing. Is this solving a problem or making one? All right? And that's another thing that's in the code book. Solve problems without making any. Okay? And that's all. If we just concentrate on those two words alone, you got it all.
You got it all.
And we can transform an entire people. At the end of this week, we will be a different people altogether.
Okay.
Just from taking that stand. I'm not about anything except problem solving. And I don't even want to be around people who are not about problem solving.
Not about it, yes, sir.
Right.
Okay, let's see here. From the Facebook.com/Talktainment line, we have Nikhil Younglove. Says, good morning, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. Julian Grant said this, Mr. Fuller. He calls you Dr. Fuller. Good morning and much love from your UK, United Kingdom family. I call you Doctor. Now, this is Julian, not me. I call you Doctor as I recognize you are a master psychologist, as your work has influenced many people who hold qualifications in psychology and psychiatry, such as our beloved Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Amos Wilson, and many, many more. We thank you, Mr. Fuller, for your work in the worldwide African non-white community. He wrote that all the way from the United Kingdom. And Nikhil Young checking in from Texas. So we've got a big, strong Texas connection. Thank you, Texas, here for our remaining minutes. Mr. Fuller, you wrote on the last line on page 296, before engaging in sexual intercourse and or sexual play, make certain that the answer to the following basic questions is yes. What are those questions, quickly?
Is the person non-white? Before engaging in sexual intercourse and or sexual play, make certain that the answer to the following basic question is yes. Now, why is this? A lot of people say, well, how come you can't have sexual intercourse with white people during the existence of white supremacy? It's because it's in the system of white supremacy. And it's because prisoners of war, which is what every non-white person is in the system of white supremacy, should not be having sexual intercourse with the warden of the prison, particularly when the warden is a part of the prison system, and the prison system shouldn't exist. You eliminate that system and get a system of justice.
All right.
Then sexual intercourse between white and non-white is legitimate.
Okay.
Up until then, it's an illegitimate exercise that puts the non-white person at a disadvantage.
All right.
That's the answer.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.
It puts the non-white person at a disadvantage.
Okay. Thanks for listening to the first hour. We'll be back for the second hour of the compensatory concept on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard.
To the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Okay, welcome back to the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. This is TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are in touch with the compensatory concept, and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. To get in contact with the show, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766. You can also go to facebook.com/Talktainment, where you can see and hear the show, and you're also able to leave a comment, and I will read your comment on the phone here that I have. And also you can go to the Gmails, that is 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will at some point in a future show read whatever it is that you have to say. Now, let's continue. Mr. Fuller, we were, before I read Robert Smothers, the third Gmail, you were speaking on the bottom of page 296, and then you went to the top of page 297. Before engaging in sexual intercourse and or sexual play, make certain that the answer to the following basic questions is yes. Now, you already answered question number one, is the person non-white? Then we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. Could you quickly go through those so that we can continue our discussion on starting with number 2? That's on page 297.
297. Will this act of sexual intercourse and our sexual play with this person help both myself and this person to think, speak, and or act more effectively to end racism and replace it with justice? In other words, if you're going to have sexual intercourse with someone, is that particular act going to help you to think, speak, and act, and the other person think, speak, and act in a better way against racism?
Yes.
Why? Because that very bed that you're in, if you're on a bed, wherever you happen to be, if you're on a grassy knoll having sexual intercourse, you're still under the system of white supremacy if you're non-white people. So that should be your priority when you get up off that knoll or get out of that bed. Because you probably still owe some white person for that bed that you were in.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you got to make payments. Okay?
All right.
So therefore, you're dealing with racism. If you're not interested in dealing with racism, and why is this? It's because, you know, they say, Fuller, you keep talking about, everything is about racism. You better believe it is, because everything is about racism. There's nothing that is not about racism if you are a person classified as non-white. So if you got a bed partner, that bed partner should be interested in solving the problem solving of racism.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're going to be what? Incompatible.
Okay.
Right.
What about number 3?
You're not on the same page. If you're about ending racism and the other person says, I ain't got time for that mess. Let's have fun. Let's party, let's do this, let's go that, let's go on vacation, whatever that means. No, you're not on the same page.
Okay.
So whatever person you have in sexual intercourse with, see, you're narrowing your field down now of persons that you have sexual intercourse with, which is what you need to do anyway.
Okay.
All right? And that is, hey, you got to both be interested in ending the world of racism. Why? Because the world of racism is going to mess up everything that you even plan on doing.
Okay.
So you might as well think about that now.
All right. Let's move on to number 3.
And number 3, will this act of sexual intercourse and our sexual play with this person be pleasing to both me and the person? In other words, hey, it's not really sexual intercourse. You're just having a sexual act, but you're not having intercourse, putting the emphasis on that, unless you're both pleased with being with each other sexually. If one person considers it a chore, and sometimes people fake it, and the other person thinks that, hey, they're in heaven, that's incompatible.
Yes.
And that's not harmonious. We're looking for a world that's built on harmony. That's not harmonious at all. That's artificial.
Okay.
That's why rape doesn't make sense.
That's it, right.
It's not mutual.
Right.
That's absolutely stupid. And any person that forces themselves on anybody, even for economic reasons, that's force.
Okay.
A female forced to feed her children by having to act like she's enjoying sex with somebody when she's not. That should never happen, under no circumstance, ever. And any environment that even breeds that type of mentality should be banished.
Okay.
Should be gotten rid of.
All right, number 4.
Number 4, will this act of sexual intercourse and our sexual play with this person be done in a constructive manner that will in no way result in harm to any person who is not a white supremacist? Will this act of sexual intercourse and or sexual play with this person be done in a constructive manner that will in no way result in harm to any person who is not a white supremacist? In other words, that sounds maybe a little complicated and all like that, but it just means that whatever act that you commit sexually should, for the most part, be directly or indirectly contributing to opposition to the system of white supremacy and actually be of harm to the system of white supremacy, because the system of white supremacy needs to be harmed. It's a system that never should have existed, and it's messed up everybody on the planet, white people and black people. Whoever thought of this idea of racism, mistreating people based on color, or mistreating people based on anything?
Right.
It turned out to be mistreating people based on color is the biggest obstacle to peace on this planet. So everybody should be on board with that, and nobody should be in support of it.
Okay. How about this one, number 5?
Number 5. Have you and this person told each other everything that each of you has ever done in regards to sexual intercourse, sexual play and or anti-sexual activity, so-called homosexual or lesbian intercourse, etc. You got to reveal that. Otherwise, you're not ready to have sexual intercourse for the first time anyway.
Okay.
All right. And the explanation for all of that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to read that part.
According to compensatory logic, that's what all of this that I've said before is based on. The best and correct way to engage in sexual intercourse and our sexual play is to do so after each person has truthfully answered the aforementioned basic questions, just 5 of them.
Yes.
And is satisfied enough with the answers and with each other to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with each other. Okay. I mean,
that explains it.
The sexual area of this book, period, is pretty huge.
Yes, it's long.
All right. But it should be. Why? For a very logical reason. Everything should be based on logic because it's the second greatest motivating force among the people of the planet. Everybody on the planet is either interested in doing something sexual themselves or they're reacting to someone who is doing something sexual all the time, 24/7. A person might say, well, I'm not interested in sex. I mean, you know, I never have been. That ain't no big thing with me. I mean, I'm interested in money and I'm interested in having a pretty house and all like that.
Yes.
So sex is just something that, you know, kind of off to the side. Well, that might be your position, but that's not the position of most of the people that you're around. So you're going to be reacting to their sexual activities that's going to affect whatever it is that you're doing, either directly or indirectly, whether you know it or not. I mean, who's marrying who and all like that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you're saying you're interested in building houses, but your sister wants to marry this fella that ain't interested in nothing.
Yes, sir.
All right? So now you're going to react to her sexual situation because she's your sister. And you're trying to give her advice about building houses, and she's saying she ain't got time to be thinking about building no houses. She's trying to get that guy to be her husband. All right?
Yes, sir.
And you check to find out that all he's interested in is being a pimp. So that's going to affect you. All right?
Okay. All righty. Let's go to the, let's see here. This Gmails. This is from Robert Smothers III. He says, Mr. Fuller mentioned the white supremacists teach us things we shouldn't learn. What are a few of those things we shouldn't learn and why, Mr. Fuller?
Oh, you should learn anything that you see above. That's a choice. That's why I say everything in the code that I've written is tailored to the individual person based on the principle that I've outlined throughout this entire program. I mean, you know, you solve the problems of the individual person, you solve the problems of all people, okay? So, yes, you learn anything. I don't want that to be misinterpreted. You listen to everybody, particularly white people. Shouting down white people when they're talking is something I'd never do. Let that white person talk, because white people know a lot. And they have intentions, and those intentions just may affect you. You better find out what they are, all right? Information is power. There's a radio station here, Radio 1, Dr. Kathy Hughes. I mean, they use that slogan, and that's a slogan that really means something.
Mm-hmm.
Information is power. That's telling you something about doing something. See, a lot of slogans that black people have don't tell you anything about what to do. That's a slogan that tells you what to do. Get information. I don't care where this information is coming from, because the more you know and understand about anything, a grain of sand at the bottom of the ocean, the more you know and understand about that grain of sand might, somewhere down the line, make you more powerful than you already are. So have an open mind. When people are talking, particularly people who know a little something, and just about everybody knows something, listen. Don't shut people down when they are talking. You learn something, even if it's no more than what they're talking is nonsense. You've learned something there. And you've learned why it's nonsense. That starts you to thinking. All right? So it's no harm whatsoever. I want that to be clearly understood. But be able to tell what you're listening to, be able to interpret it, what you're listening to, and then think over it and pick out the things that you can use in order to do what? Solve problems. And leave the things that don't solve problems, leave that be. That's it. Very simple.
Okay. Let's do this. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. All right, let me give you 3 of them here. Get the book in front of me. Let's do this. This is Libby with Libby Rand. Good show there. Well, all of them are good. Senior Agenda. Some of you are reaching that age. What, 60 is a new 40? Okay. And Real Men. How about that with Pastor Banks? Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. All you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, and there you can click on for the programs. I was also told, and I have seen that there is a donate button there. Someone asked, how can we donate even if it's off season? And you can. There's a donate button there. You can push, and you're all good. Oh, yeah, and Ed, program that was on September the 6th, is that all up, both 1 and 2 hours? Because I got a couple of questions about that. Programs 1 and 2? No? Okay. Root Dog, Ed said he doesn't know for sure, but they're going to look into that, so that answers your question. But anyway, go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, and all of the programs, all of the shows are listed there with the show host, and you can get all the information you need. That's from TalkTainmentRadio.com, radio, the way it should be heard. Hello, everybody. My name is Mr. Bobby, and I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. This is our online classroom, one of the Facebook.com/Talktainment people named it that, and I kind of like that because we are learning. I know I'm learning. I'm still learning. And you can access that. You can leave a comment on that line, too. Good or bad, it doesn't matter, good or bad. Just go ahead and do your thing. Most of them, majority of them are very nice for Mr. Fuller and the information that he is giving. But you can do that. You can also go to the phone line, which somebody just did, 1-877-932-9766, or Gmail me at the numeral 7MrBobby@gmail.com, and we will do our best. What line are we on here? Line number 1? Okay. Line number 1, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hello. Yes, hi. My name's Gregory, and I have a question for Mr. Fuller.
Yeah.
I just want to ask him if he thought that homosexuality is something that we learned from the system of white supremacy, or do you feel like people are actually born to be this way?
Mr. Fuller?
Is homosexuality what now?
Something we learned through the system of white supremacy, or do you feel like there are people who are genuinely born this way to begin with?
Or people are born with it?
Yes.
Or is it?
It seems like it's always been around. I was curious to know if he thought that it was something that we learned, or...
People are very flexible. I think it's both. But then some people are born with these tendencies. I was around several persons. I'm from a small town, and I even saw them evolve. Schoolmates, 1 or 2 that I remember very distinctly. And I saw them evolve so that, when I started taking an interest in girls, because, when I was real young, I didn't take an interest in, anything. I didn't even know what sex was, like we all didn't at one time. But when that starts, whatever happens in your body starts going a certain way, you can guide it in different directions, or there might be things in your genes that guide you in a different direction from where everybody else is going, because everybody's genes are different. So you don't hold that against the person on how they evolve, but you just call it what it is. and it's going to either have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect. That's in anything. You know, there are some people who are born with defects. I'm not saying that that's a defect. It could be. But see, you evaluate everything for whether or not it's the most constructive or the least constructive of anything. And that's, you know, a person can say, well, hey, this person is born a midget. You know, that's a defect. Well, maybe yes and maybe no, depending on what you're talking about. A defect as compared to what? You know? I mean, you know, a person say, well, how do you relate to a person who is what you call a dwarf or a midget? I mean, you know, they're just, you know, a foot and a half tall. I mean, they never got any taller than that. And they got to be, you know, 40 years old, and they're a foot and a half tall. This person, this is a person. And you can't even find a pair of shoes that's small enough to fit them. All right? And you say, how is this person going to function in the society? See, this is what it all comes down to. How does a person like this function in a society? I mean, when you have steering wheels and all like this, and you know, you have shelves to reach up to get. I mean, you know, hey, this person just can't walk up and take a book off the shelf. This person has to do something else. And it's the same way when you come to something sexual. I mean, you know, what does the person do? See, it always comes down to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not that contributes to something constructive or non-constructive. Because every move that a person makes, every move that a cat makes, every move that a snail makes, a bird makes, any time of day or night on this planet is going to fall in one of only two categories. It's just two categories: constructive, non-constructive. So as best you can, regardless of who you are, what kind of person you are, what your sexuality is, and all like that, that applies to you. Are you engaging in something that contributes to something constructive or non-constructive? And then that here's the punchline question. If so, how?
Okay.
How is it constructive? I mean, this particular thing that you do, because it always comes down to what you do. How is it constructive and more constructive than something that somebody else is doing?
Yes.
I mean, be able to say what it is. Because if you can't say what it is, you ain't got no argument, you ain't got no discussion. Because logic is logic.
Logic is
logic.
logic.
It doesn't take no prisoners.
Okay.
Yeah, something is either logical or it isn't.
All righty.
All right.
From the line here from, wow, from the Gmail, Greenmark asked this question, Mr. Fuller. He said, Mr. Fuller, after watching the latest Spider-Man movie that stars a white male and a so-called black female as his love interest of mixed race parentage, I noticed there was no sexual contact or any physical contact whatsoever. He even abandons her and subsequently leaves town. The only contact came in the last 5 minutes of the movie from a different white male and white female whom had no significance in the plot of the movie. I noticed this movie and all other movies are carefully constructed when starring white and so-called black leads to have no or minimal sexual contact. Also in the Spider-Man movie, as he was speaking to a non-white black male, he directly referred to him as a, quote, criminal, end of quote, the one and only time the word was used. Can you explain to me, Mr. Fuller, can you explain this? Because I believe this has become their main weapon to solve their so-called Negro problem and eradicate our skin. Mr. Fuller?
It's got to be discussed. It's got to be talked about. That's why I say, particularly in the 8th area of activity, sex, when it comes to race, that's always volatile. Because at the end of the day, that's where it's going to always lead to. I mean, all the stuff about economics and the black side of town and the educational system and who's going to go to what school and all like that. Really, when you boil it all down, it's going to lead to that 8th area of activity. That includes even all the stuff about war and whatnot and fighting.
Yes, sir.
And all like that. See, people dance all around it, but it comes down to what's going on in the bedroom between white and non-white. How you going to do it? Because, see, when you keep mixing white with non-white, white people understand, and black people do, even though we don't like to discuss it. You ain't going to have no white, all right, when you produce offspring. That's a fact, okay? Now, that should be discussed. That should be put right on the table, right from the beginning, if you're really serious.
Why?
About solving the race problem. It should be right at, hey, we're going to take care of this right now. Because it's all about genetic survival.
Okay.
All right? Eventually. That's where it's going to lead to. And a lot of white people who come to the podium and say that get shouted down. You don't shout it down. You say, okay, how are we going to handle it? Because that's a genetic fact. That is a fact of existence. When you mix white with non-white, you get non-white. I mean, that's how it adds up. I mean, that's the way the universe is set up. I mean, nobody who is breathing now had anything to do with inventing that. That was invented by the creator of the universe. So, what is a lot of white people's argument? Well, you get all this black and white together in the same schools and all like that. Eventually, they'll be having sexual intercourse, and eventually, all the white people will become black or brown or yellow or what they call red bone or some type of albino freaks or something like that. This is what they say. And if they won't be real blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 6-foot, Germanic-type white people, all right? Let's talk like it really is. All the conversations that are still missed when we're sitting up talking about, housing and education and all like that. Everybody dances around that. Stop this dancing, because this is serious business. I mean, so let's talk business, like the Corleones and whatnot, talking to, the Tatalias and all like that. Hey, you're going to talk business, Mo Green. Let's talk business. Let's go straight to it. What's the problem here? Is that one of the biggest problems? Okay, that problem can be settled. In other words, how do you settle it?
Mm-hmm.
You just make it clear. We're not trying to exterminate white people from the planet. White people have shown that they can make great contributions. That's irrefutable. But the way they're going about doing it, stomping on non-white people, is unacceptable. So now how do you alleviate that situation? If they have a fear of what you call genetic annihilation, you sit, just like you alleviate any situation, you sit down and talk about it. You say, okay, we will limit voluntarily, based on this, you might say, common sense. We'll just agree to limit the sexual activity between white and non-white, and we'll control that we don't limit, which will be a limitation. Meaning, here's a white woman who has sexual intercourse with a black person, okay, but they can't have offspring. All right, that's a limitation right there. The white woman says, "Hey, I'm unable to have babies. I can't reproduce." Okay, well, you just look at it just straightforward. Say, "Oh, you can't reproduce, so therefore, it doesn't matter. It's just, sexual intercourse. For pleasure, because you can't reproduce anyway." All right, so that in a system where there is no white supremacy, there's no problem. There'll be no problem. And even if you producing non-white people by sexual intercourse with white people, if you're black, If you reach a certain tipping point, you can just simply say, we are going to voluntarily restrain from having sexual intercourse to preserve the white people on this planet.
Okay.
You can do that intelligently. You don't have to shout and argue and burn crosses and all this kind of stuff about it. I mean, let's just be businesslike.
Okay.
Handle things the way that they should be handled.
All right, let's
just make an agreement.
All right.
And stick to the agreement. Everybody stick to the agreement.
Okay.
There'll be no problem.
TalkTainMentrAdio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1. WGRN broadcasts are available. Download the TalkTainMentrAdio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We got a phone call waiting. And how about, you ever heard of 130 questions? That's what Neely Fuller wrote. All that and more coming up next on TalkTainMentrAdio.com.
For the best home fragrance and beauty products, shop Ash Kickin online.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Made with 100% natural quality ingredients and handcrafted with your family in mind, Ash Kickin products are better than those other guys. Ash Kickin candles, incense, body butter, face moisturizer, and hair moisturizer are priced just right, and you can get yours at 10% off with coupon code TALK17. Support this 100% Black-owned business and get your home and body smelling and feeling all right.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Shop Ash Kickin online at www.ashkickin.com.
This is Al Edmondson, owner of a Cutter Brother Rest Barbershop. I'm calling on all barbers and beauticians. It's time for us to unite as one. We can serve our communities better together. Join the Ohio Black Barber Beauty Network. For more information, visit www.obbn.org or call 614-427-3226 to get more information. Be the change that you want to see in your community. Join our network.
If you or someone you know is abusing drugs and or alcohol and want to stop the abuse, contact APDS at 1409 East Livingston Avenue. Office hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday. APDS is certified by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and primarily funded through the Adam H. Board. Fees are based on your income and Medicaid is always accepted. For more information, call 614-253-4448.
Think fast. In less than 30 seconds, a small flame can become a big fire. Don't let your world go up in smoke. Have working smoke alarms and keep heaters 3 feet away from anything that can burn. Learn more at usfa.fema.gov because fire is everyone's fight.
Do you have problems controlling high blood pressure? Good news. You can enroll in Helping Hands Health and Wellness Center's health coaching program utilizing the innovative Twine Health platform. We will help you set your goals, keep in touch with you via your cell phone, and may provide you a free blood pressure cuff. Call us at 614-462-0114 or visit us on the web at www.helpinghandsfreeclinic.org to see if you qualify. This program is provided to you by a grant from the CVS Health Foundation.
See that cute little dog in the pet store? Chances are it came from a puppy mill. A breeding facility that forces caged, neglected, and often sick dogs to churn out puppies to be sold for profit. Meanwhile, millions of wonderful, healthy pets end up in animal shelters. But with one simple choice, you can help. Just by deciding to adopt instead of purchase your next pet. Not only are you saving a life, you're taking a stand against puppy mills. Visit bestfriends.org/puppy mills to learn more.
I've got the water, energy bars, and camera. I think we're set for the hike.
Almost. We need to protect our skin. Don't forget your wide-brimmed hat and sunscreen.
All right. I've got the hat. I've got SPF 30. Will that work?
Yeah, anything 15 or higher is good. Just make sure it says broad spectrum.
Great. Got it. I am not getting burned again. Let's go.
Learn more at cdc.gov/cancer.
Families affected by disasters urgently need support. Help the American Red Cross provide meals and shelter to those affected by disasters, big and small. Donate to Red Cross Disaster Relief. Go to redcross.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
All right, class is still in session. Thank you for listening. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download. That's right. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Yeah, just like you did the Facebook.com/Talktainment app. Yeah, do that and you can see and hear us. Anyway, this is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host of the Compensatory Concept here on TalkTainmentRadio.com with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. live from Washington, D.C. and from the Facebook.com/Talktainment line. Brother Muko Bam is checking in. Thank you, Brother Muko. Yes, sir. Michael says this. He says, Mr. Fuller, you're a genius. He says it's like listening to a wise man or a prophet, and I've heard that several times from several other people. And he also says, thank you, and thank you. And then also, Nikhil Younglove, that last dissertation said that I agree, the mixing is just not good. Black people need to realize this and stop fighting it. Okay. All right. That all comes from the Facebook.com/Talktainment line where you can leave a comment, and I'll try not to mess it up as I read it, but you can do so by doing that. Hit the like button, or you don't like it, something you don't, it doesn't matter. Hit it anyway, give us, and then we can get your feedback on that. Let's see. Let's go to the phone lines. What line am I going to go to? Okay. Push button. Line number 1. Okay. You're on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. How you doing today?
Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
So my question is, first of all, I know some brothers I've been speaking to, and brothers, I mean black males, who are in long-term relationships with white females and even married to white females. And their position is their marriage to a white female is their contribution to trying to eliminate racism. So without arguing how they feel about it, my request to Mr. Fuller is, can you give a couple examples of how a black male is at a disadvantage when he is in a long-term relationship or a marriage with a white female?
Okay.
It's the sexual intercourse. I mean, and it's the position of the people in a system that is illegitimate. It's an illegitimate transaction. Within what context? We are in a system of white supremacy. If there was no such thing as racism, then it would just be, to use a cliche, boy meets girl. So what? Okay, other than the genetic factors of baby producing, all right, and which scares white people, all right. They won't say it. They don't come to the colleges and whatnot and say it. I mean, they dance all around it. Black people should say, wait a minute, what's the problem here? You think that white people are going to disappear? I mean, by this mixing with black people? Is that what you're worried about? Yes or no? I mean, let's talk business, okay? Because this is the genesis of a whole lot of the problem. But both black people and white people dance around that. They just say, oh, well, I mean, that's a personal thing. Let's not get into that. No, that's business. This is what causes a whole lot of racial strife. That's what put Emmett Till in that coffin, whistling at a white woman, all right? Well, what has that got to do with anything? Whistling at a white woman? Whistling? All right, what does the whistle mean? It means you might lead to something else, boy, you know? And we got to put you in the grave, you know, because it ain't just no whistling. It's that you might put your hands on her. And it ain't just you putting your hands on her. You're going to go further than that. And when you go further than that, what is the further than that? It's sexual intercourse. And if you have sexual intercourse, you're going to produce a little baby that looks like you, boy. And it ain't going to look like me. I'm a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man. All right? Now, wake up and smell the coffee. This is what this is all about. This is why we're going to put you in the grave when you whistle at her. Well, you know, I don't care how it works out. It looks like it's heading in that direction. And we don't want nothing heading in that direction. Now, see, a lot of white people will say that. And people shout them down when they do. I say, don't shout them down. That's what I'm saying. Let's cut to the chase. Let's be businesslike. Oh, that's what you're worried about. That's why we can't go to school and learn anything. Because you're afraid that at some point, that black football player is going to capture the attention of that majorette over there who's white, 6 foot tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and it ain't going to be no 6 foot tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white women no more on this planet if they mix with you, with your black self. Okay? So that's what this is about. All right. Let's sit down and talk about it. Business-like. Everything can be worked out. We will limit voluntarily that type of activity. And this is why it's not healthy. And it makes, with the position that black people are in the system of white supremacy, it messes up the black person's mind in that type of relationship under the system of white supremacy. See, it's a mental thing.
Yes, sir.
See, the black person who is laying down with that white woman, when he gets up out of that bed, oh, yeah, the sex is all fine and all like that. But he carries that white flesh in his mind, and that blinds him to a whole lot of other things.
Okay.
All right?
Well,
like really being serious about solving the race problem.
Yes, sir.
He becomes more confused.
Mm-hmm.
The white partner becomes more confused. It's just like the prisoner going to bed with the warden and then going back to the jail cell. See?
Yeah, that would be confusing.
Let me make it very explicit. If a black male right now having sexual intercourse with a white woman, all right, when he gets out of that bed, he's still dealing with what? His black skin in a white supremacist system. He is still in his face when he drives down the street from that house where he just left that white woman. All right? He is in the real world. Okay? He's not in that little box called a house. Okay? So he's got to deal with racism on the job and everywhere else. That white woman don't have to deal with nothing. Same white woman he just got out of bed with. She don't have to wake up worrying about that unless some white person finds out that she just left that bed with that black guy. Now she's got a problem. But otherwise, she doesn't have a problem. Mm-hmm. The black person has a problem regardless. That's why I'm talking about you're at a disadvantage, mister.
Okay.
You're at, and the more you go in between those white legs, when you come out, the more messed up your mind is, because it's not dealing with the real world as it is.
Okay. What line, Ed? Line number one? Line number one, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please, with your question.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Fuller, I was thinking about these football players taking a knee and how that's supposedly going to solve anything. And you talk about us always talking about coming together, like as if we come together and stand shoulder to shoulder somewhere, like that's going to solve a problem. And like all the problems are going to magically disappear just because you're taking a knee or just because you're coming together. Now here's the question. I was thinking about something that you would say as regards to police shootings of black men. You would probably say that we're in a prison system and you got the prison guards shooting the inmates. So the only person who's going to be able to change that situation is the warden of the prison. And so far, the warden's not doing anything. So would you agree with that?
Yes, if I understand the question, actually, we are in a prison system. That's why I say, when you're out here, I'm going to go over it again and say it as long as it's true, because it is true, and that truth hasn't changed. You are in mortal danger when a white person approaches you with a gun. You're not on a school campus talking to homeboy and having a little beef about who won the basketball game last night. That's the way we act. No, you're on a battlefield. And that person in that rear view mirror that you're looking at and those blinking lights back there, when he gets out, he's approaching you with a gun. And if he's white, in a system of white supremacy, you should think that you are now in line for a death sentence. You should think that, even though he's just giving you a ticket and telling you to have a nice day, all right? But you should think that you are going to die in a very few minutes. That's the way your mind should race to right now. Today is the last day that you are going to be breathing. You're not going to talk to your girlfriend or your mother anymore, or see your children if you got any, or any of this. In the next 5 minutes, when he gets up to that alongside of you, within pistol range, he's going to empty that pistol in your head. That is exactly what you should have in mind is going to happen. Yet in that, I'm a prisoner, and I have gotten over the fence mode. And the warrant is out, dead or alive. Catch that guy, that prisoner of war, and kill him like you are in a Nazi death camp in World War II, because they didn't play. And hey, you get over that fence. You ain't coming back. We're not going to bring you back here. You're going to die, because you ain't got no business going over the fence in the first place. All right? That is the mentality that every black person should have, rather than, why are you pulling me over? Stop that nonsense. Wow. Realize the kind of world that you're in. You're on a battlefield, and the word is out from every commandant, kill that person on sight. Period. Don't bring that person back here in no handcuffs. Leave that person on the side of the highway for the buzzards to eat. That's exactly what you should be thinking. Don't fuss, don't fight, and don't flee. The 3 F's. I keep saying that over and over again. Stop playing. This is no game.
Talktainment
Get these handcuffs off me. I mean, and then we try to see how many MFs we can say in 5 minutes. That's not going to save you. No kind of way.
No way. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio, the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. Hello there. And I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. He is live from Washington, D.C., and we are in the 8th area of people activity, and we will be in this area for quite a while. It's the area of sex. You can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766. You can also go to facebook.com/Talktainment and leave me or leave Mr. Fuller a message. And if I have time, I will read your comments, but also there's a like button there. And of course, you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Mr. Fuller, this is the time of the show where it's book time. So we need you to just speak for a couple of minutes about your book, how we can get it, and the name of it, and any pertinent information.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's like in product, because, and why did I give it that? Because that's what we're supposed to be trying to do. Produce a product called justice, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, nowhere on the planet, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. You can help people, but make sure that that help that you give a person is constructive, not non-constructive. Handing a person a drink of whiskey is non-constructive. So you don't give a person that kind of help because you're not helping them. You're becoming helping them to become a greater alcoholic than they already are. Okay? You're not helping them at all. Okay? So you want to produce a product called justice. And you can go to producejustice.com, and what will come up on the screen is an advertisement and a method for ordering the textbook for victims of white supremacy. Now, if you don't consider yourself a victim of white supremacy, then the book is not for you. And it's tailored for the individual, how to solve your problems as an individual without having to go to a meeting or check with somebody or call Neely Fuller even. I mean, just do your own thinking. It's to empower you as an individual. Someone called me the other day and said something about, Fuller, you don't talk about anything, that appeals to women and whatnot. I mean, and I said, okay, well, what do you want me to say? See, I asked a logical question. Say, well, talk about Black Wall Street and whatnot. Well, in my mind, Black Wall Street should appeal to females and males and everybody else. But then it gets into the question of what is Black Wall Street? Well, the codified version of Black Wall Street is not to find out what people did in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's to find out how people get money now and make each individual. See, because my book is tailored to the individual. I'd like to see every individual black person on the planet be a walking Wall Street. In other words, you know exactly what to do in order to make money as the individual person. It's Wall Street, in our minds is a place that you go to, like going to Oz or Shangri-La and Eureka. The minute you get on that street, all kinds of magical things are supposed to happen. No. Your Wall Street is in your head. You become a Wall Street. Why? Because you know how to get the money that you need or anybody else needs anywhere you go. You know all about economics. It's all in the head. That's all Wall Street is. It's in people's heads. If nothing is in people's heads, it's just a bunch of buildings on a street. That doesn't mean anything. We got to get out of that box mentality, because the white supremacists always tailor black people minds to be in boxes. So we are ready for what? A box called a jail cell, a 12 by 9, and that's it. All right? And we tend to think in terms of boxes. I mean, a church is a box. A black neighborhood is a box. That's what we talk about. Well, we got to do something in the black neighborhood, the black community. That's a box. No. If you get what needs to be in your head, you go anywhere in the universe. And this textbook for victims of white supremacy is primarily, ultimately, to get black people in a way of thinking that's universal. Why? Because we're in the universe. We should be able to go anywhere at any time of day or night and function with maximum constructive efficiency.
Okay. So,
and we should be called universal men, universal woman. That should be our goal.
Okay. So we can get the book by going to where now?
Going to producejustice.com. And the things that I'm saying, particularly about universal man and universal woman, there's a whole sector in there.
Okay.
But that's the type of people we should be, ultimately.
All righty. All righty. Before we go to the question mode again, class, on page 298, starting at page 298, all the way to page 307, I believe it is. Yeah, let me see here, make sure. 306. From 298 to page 306 in the revised expanded edition, Mr. Fuller has written this: before the first act of sexual intercourse and or sexual play with any non-white person, mutually agree to ask and truthfully answer all of the following questions, plus whatever additional questions that may come to mind. Now, he started with one question on page 298, and it goes all the way over to page 306. There's 130 questions, and maybe more if you have more. But you need to take a look at that, consider that, and look at that. Look at that. 130 questions. And there might be more, Mr. Fuller, that a question that people have?
Yes. In other words, no, that's as many as I could think of.
Okay.
But see, I always say everybody has different, and you got different cultures. If I'm talking to somebody in Kenya, I mean, what does that mean? I mean, a person who has 5 wives, maybe. I mean, that's who I'm talking to. And so if I'm talking to that person, I shouldn't be talking in a way that they're thinking, what is he talking about?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So even in Kenya, the person might look at what I'm talking about and say, none of these things apply to my situation because we got that thing wrapped up. We got our male-female thing to just the way it ought to be.
Okay.
So none of these questions apply to me. But if they apply to you, if it's anything in them at all that you think is important, then you use it.
Okay.
That's anywhere in the world.
All right.
And by the way, that would apply to everything in the code book, period, in all areas of activity.
In all areas.
If
Okay.
it doesn't apply to you as an individual, just say, well, hey, this doesn't apply to me. It might apply to somebody, in Morocco.
Okay.
That's a different way they do things and all like that.
Okay.
But here in Cincinnati, Ohio, don't apply to me. All right.
Alrighty, from the Gmails, Nawab wrote this. He said, good day. Since we're all on the topic of sex, I want to pose a question, Mr. Fuller, that falls under this category. Recently, there have been numerous articles written on the root.com and other sites like Very Smart Brothers, some written by black males and mostly black women, where black men in general are being referred to as, quote, the white people of the black race, end of quote, and as terrorists when it comes to how they deal with and treat black women, as if to imply that black men in the system of white supremacy have the power to mistreat and enslave black women in the same manner as the white male supremacists. What say you about this issue? Even though I'm sure you haven't read these articles, is this just the Negro mind at work, them not understanding what exactly white supremacy is, or them being fronted, paid, and rewarded by the white supremacists to put out what is, in my opinion, pure BS?
Well, anytime, here's the code. Anytime non-white people are in conflict with each other, the usual suspects are the white supremacists, unquote. We don't have any business in conflict with each other. We're all equal prisoners of war. Equal prisoners of war. All prisoners of war are equal. Why? Because the warden of the prison says so. You're all my prisoners. I don't care who you are. Once you're in my prison system, you're my prisoners. And I tell all of you what to do. So therefore, anything that happens to any prisoner, under the warden system, under the system of white supremacy, anything that happens to a non-white person that shouldn't happen, the white supremacists are to blame. And that includes all of the conflict that goes on between black males and black females, of which there are tons of conflict. But the white supremacists keep throwing gasoline on that fire. Why? Because it causes what? Confusion. And you can control people better when they are confused and in anger and running around in a circle, screaming and yelling and throwing things at each other and killing each other. And that's what the white supremacists want. Why? Because it works for them. Doesn't work for anybody else. It works for them. And it makes them more powerful and the non-white people weaker. Any kind of conflict. The code says there should never be an argument, and that's what the code is designed to do. There should never be an argument about anything. between one non-white person and another. Or it'd never be an argument, really. Argument means you're just going nowhere. You're shouting words at each other, but you're going nowhere. You're not solving problems. Shouldn't have that with white people either. You know, you have discussions. That's the difference between a discussion and an argument.
Yes, sir.
An argument is not about solving problems. It might make a problem that's already there bigger. A discussion, you solve a problem.
Yes,
otherwise, you haven't had a discussion. I don't care how long you talk. If you haven't solved the problem, you need to go back to the drawing board.
All righty. Well, class is over for this week, so what can I say? I can say this. Thank you, class, for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for your teachings. And thank Talktainment Radio for having us on. So with all that being said, all the thank yous out, we will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
I don't teach. I just exchange views. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power, the world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.